Hey guys, before we dive into today's amazing episode, I just wanted to share a free resource that we put together for you, the listeners of this podcast. To show my appreciation for you joining me on this beautiful journey to unleashing a life and a business of abundance, I put together the Millennial Mastermind Toolkit. This is a guide of the top 15 resources that I've discovered or been introduced to by guests, mentors, the mastermind group, or just stumbled across in my own journey. As you all know, there's a lot of stuff out there, but I've really narrowed it down through the thousands of hours of my own trials and tribulations to bring you this curated guide of books, podcasts, and mobile apps that have really made an impact on my life and my journey. You can find it at millennialmm.com/toolkit, where you can go ahead and grab it for free. So head over there, download the guide, and get moving towards your goals.
Too often, we sit on the sidelines because we think we need to have every single step mapped out. This is the myth of clarity. So it actually becomes a very convenient excuse not to get started, because if we need to know every step of the path, well, that's impossible. So it's not going to happen. So we have to have clarity. So for somebody listening, you need to have clarity, but you don't need to have the full picture. All you need is a general direction of where you want to go. I call this a North Star vision.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the Millennial Mastermind, the personal development community for entrepreneurial millennials looking for the tools, tactics, and inspiration to create the business and the life of your dreams. Today, I am very excited to welcome Tommy Baker to the Mastermind. Tommy is a writer, speaker, coach, and host of the Resist Average Academy podcast, a show for those who are ready to level up their lives and become their best selves. His newest book, The Leap of Your Life, How to Redefine Risk, Quit Waiting for Someday, and Live Boldly, aims to help you stop playing small and to live the hero's journey of your own life story. Tommy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Brett, thank you so much for having me on. I love millennials. I'm a millennial, and I love masterminds, so we're in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Great combo.
Yeah, exactly. What I know about you so far, and I'm excited to learn more throughout this conversation, I think that everything you stand for and what you put out into the world aligns very well with the concept of this show and with me and the audience. So we're going to have a great chat. I'm looking forward to it, man.
So excited to be here.
So just to kick things off, I would love to start with how you got into this kind of entrepreneurial coaching space. What is your background and what brought you to this point today?
Absolutely. So I started on a path that wasn't for me. I actually started on a path headed towards the financial services industry, an industry that honestly I had no interest in, no passion for, but I felt a lot of pressure around it. So I actually changed my major in college to fit that path. And I remember being in a train in New York City in 2008, and the train was full of people that were going into Manhattan to work in financial services. And it was right around the time of the crash. And I remember being on that train, Brad, and I remember just feeling the energy of the train and looking at the faces on the train. And I saw people who weren't fulfilled, and I saw people who, at that time, their whole empire or whatever they had built was crumbling down. And that was one of those moments in life, and I just call these moments of inflection, where I got a message that day on the train that I'm literally in the wrong train, figuratively and metaphorically, the train of where I'm headed, but also the train of my life. And that's when I started to really open up and ask myself some questions like, what is it that I really want to do? Because I saw people in their 50s and 60s and 70s on this train, and they didn't look happy. They didn't look fulfilled. They didn't look like they were thriving. They may have had full bank accounts. They may have had really nice cars, but were they going to work every day, like Warren Buffett says, and tap dancing to work? Really deep dive into, okay, what do I want? Where do I want to be in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? And what can I do about that today that's going to actually start to get me closer to it?
So from there, you're on this train, the wrong train, both in real life and metaphorically.
Yes.
You start to ask these big questions of like, okay, what is that thing that's going to get me excited to get up and really attack it? Where do you go from there? How do you start to put the pieces together to move towards what eventually becomes Resist Average Academy?
Absolutely. And so there's such an evolution. And that's why I say with our purpose and our like the people place so much pressure around our purpose, and our purpose is an evolution. Our purpose is a journey. To write down our life purpose right now in the next 90 minutes, at a seminar, it's like, that's thinking about it incorrectly. So for me at the time, I always say, your curiosity starts to lead you to your purpose. And so at that time, the things that I was curious about, passionate about, the things that I didn't have to be motivated to do, inspired to do, nobody had to wake me up in the morning to do, was at that time was physical training. And that was my passion. That was my place where I wanted to grow my expertise. So that led me to start my own gym and dive headfirst into the entrepreneurship journey at a time when, again, the market was terrible. I had no roster full of clients, but I knew it was something I was going to wake up every morning and have a desire to attack. And when we have something that we're on purpose, as we look at the challenges and the obstacles with as much vigor and vitality as we do the amazing stuff, because that's what it means to live a purposeful life. So, I started the fitness business, and just to fast track to like all the way now, that was my first business. That was my first deep dive into entrepreneurship. And then it was about 4 years ago that I pivoted, because I found that my purpose had evolved, and it wasn't about the physical training. It was, okay, what is happening in between the minds of somebody who comes to me and achieves amazing transformation, and somebody else who has, similar age, background, demographics, psychographics, and stays stuck. And that's when I really deep dove into human behavior, neuroscience, all of the stuff around mindset and all of the principles, which became Resist Average and what I'm doing right now.
That's awesome. So with the podcast and everything else you're doing with Resist Average, what is your goal with that, or the mission of what you're working on?
Absolutely. The mission is to wake people up. It's to wake people up. And when I say that, I seek simplicity in my messaging, because we all need these reminders. And to me, there's two types of growth in life. There's this growth that you and I, Brad, we choose to get uncomfortable today, physically, mentally, emotionally, sometimes spiritually, today, because we know that the short-term discomfort is going to lead to long-term purpose, long-term fulfillment, and also long-term results, which we all want. That's one path. There's a second path. There's the path of drifting aimlessly. There's the path that I was on that train. There's the path of, going to the job every single day, knowing it's not for you, and just waiting and waiting and waiting. And there's no plan. There's no purpose. There's no life force anymore in that place. And when in that place, we're going to get tested, but we're going to grow not on our terms. We're going to get challenges, physical challenges. We're going to get emotional challenges. We're going to get breakups and divorces. We're going to get things that we frankly don't want, but because we're not choosing growth is being chosen for us. So the purpose of the academy and the stuff that I'm doing in the content is to say, is to build a tribe around people much like you, who want to grow every single day, because they know that's the path, not only to deep inner fulfillment, which we all want, but also just incredible external results. And most importantly, when we get those results, they don't own us. They're not our identity. They're not, if they change or whatever, that doesn't crush us, right? Because we've done the inner work to reflect the outer work.
Yeah, no, I hear you say that. And the word that really comes to mind for me is intentional, having that intention in your growth. And no matter how intentional you are, we're all going to have some of that, type 2 growth that you mentioned there, where there's failures, there's unexpected things that life throws at you that you naturally grow from. And that's healthy as well, I think, but really making sure that you do put intention into where you're headed and the type of growth in terms of that long-term thinking and your destination is so important. And I'd be curious then, both, back in the day with your fitness clients and then to the people who you're coaching today, whether it's more around this mindset and entrepreneurship type coaching, who are the type of people, or are there any specific things that you see in type of people who are really able to pour into that first bucket of that intentional growth that we can learn from and maybe start trying to emulate in our own lives to get better at that?
Absolutely. So Some of the pillars are the patterns and the pillars come up time and time again. And just like you said, yes, we're going to be faced with challenges, but when we've already see the powerful part about choosing the growth is that you and I build skills, belief, confidence, adaptability, all of the stuff that's going to prepare us for the challenges that are going to come regardless. And that's the beautiful thing. In terms of some pillars around this, it's like, okay, we have to have clarity, right? We have to have clarity on where we want to go. Now, here's the problem, Brad. I call this the myth of clarity. Too often, we sit on the sidelines because we think we need to have every single step mapped out. This is the myth of clarity. So it actually becomes a very convenient excuse not to get started, because if we need to know every step of the path, well, that's impossible. So it's not going to happen. So we have to have clarity. So for somebody listening, you need to have clarity, but you don't need to have the full picture. All you need is a general direction of where you want to go. I call this a North Star vision. And the North Star, it's going to change. It's going to evolve, but just a general direction. If I grab you and I say, hey, where are you going? What do you want to be in 5 years? Just give me a sense. So you have to have every detail out? No. Just give me a sense. But then we also have to have clarity on reverse engineering that. It's like, what is one thing that you can do today, the simplest possible iteration that you can actually do today that's just going to give you a little bit of confidence that that North Star vision is going to come to life? And then we're going to celebrate that win, because too often we focus on the things that aren't working, how far we have to go, the gap between here and where we want to go. And then tomorrow we're going to do the same exact thing. And if we build enough of those consistently, we start to build a deep and powerful belief. Why? Because we begin to create momentum towards that dream. The biggest killer of personal development and setting big goals and dreams is what? We look around 3 months later or 3 weeks later or 6 months later, and it's like, wow, I haven't really made any progress. So we need to have clarity, and we need to have clarity on those first few steps. And then we need to build momentum and consistency along those so we can feel like it's coming to life. And when that happens, we just, as you know, we start to put ourselves in situations where the people, the places, the environments, the deals, all of the stuff that's going to help us get us there faster starts to come to life.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in momentum and
yes.
Just doing the small things daily that contribute to that. But the other thing that you said that I really like is celebrating those small wins, because I feel like it's so easy for us to get trapped in this way of thinking that we ignore the small wins. We don't give ourselves the credit for those, but then the small challenges we blow up in our mind to be these massive mountains of an obstacle. And it gets so imbalanced that a lot of times people just quit based on their perception of the way things are moving. And they might feel like they've made no progress, but if you really sit down and look at just those small wins, those have added up, but you've just breezed past them and not given yourself the opportunity to really enjoy those. Whereas you've overemphasized some of the not so positive things that have come up. So I really like how you put that.
And I love what you said there, the perceived.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Brad, you and I, we're the worst people to analyze and achieve perspective on our own growth. And it's amazing, because when I work with my clients, the best testimonials I get actually don't come from them, because they can't even see the growth and how far they've come. The best testimonials comes from their wives and girlfriends, their coworkers, their friends saying, hey, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing with him, but the change is incredible. And they can't even see that growth. And so just a practical tip for somebody listening, this is part of my evening routine, every single day, write down 3 to 5 of your wins. And again, so this podcast is going to be on there. It's not about these massive moments where you have your biggest revenue day. It's about those small wins. Why? Because our focus goes to the places where we're actually building confidence and capability. And when we focus on the wins, the next day we wake up and we're like, okay, I feel a little bit more momentum. I feel like this is actually coming to life. Where else can I create some wins? And it really takes the pressure off. I'm a big fan of manufacturing urgency. I'm a big fan of really intense, focused work. But too much pressure becomes the law of diminishing returns. And when you and I have too much pressure, it's easy to go into procrastination. It's easy to avoid. It's easy to distract, because at some point it stops serving. And celebrating wins is a way to really alleviate that and give us what I call our personal power back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's funny that you mentioned how the biggest testimonials come from the wives, girlfriends, friends, clients of those individuals, because it's so easy to, especially for really focus driven individuals, like the type of people who are probably listening to this podcast, to get compliments from the people in their lives and be so focused on what's next to just shrug that off and be like, no, I don't know. Like not actually take that compliment and internalize and say, oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I've been working hard at this thing, and it's great that you've recognized that. I'm not there yet, but I appreciate you calling that out. But so many, and I'm 100% guilty of this. So often when people do recognize that growth, we don't even want to hear about it because we're just focused on the next growth opportunity.
And Brad, I love that you said that, because this will have a direct correlation in all of my experience with how much financial prosperity and how much wealth we allow ourselves to receive. I work on this with my clients a lot, and I've also had to work through it myself. If we're unable to receive a compliment, something that's very simple yet powerful, without deflecting or minimizing or all the stuff that you said, then we're much less likely to receive also financial resources at the capacity that we are truly capable of. And so this concept of receiving is really, really crucial. Like for the go-getters, for the ambitious, that's who I am. You got to balance that out with the ability to receive energy, receive compliments, receive, financial compensation, all of this stuff. Otherwise, we can be so head down in the trenches that we never take a moment and say, hey, where am I getting this back? Where is the value that I'm creating coming back to me? I call this the myth of value, Brad. They say in entrepreneurship, if you just put off enough value, well, you're going to be all set for life. I completely disagree. There was times in my entrepreneurial career where I poured my mind, body, and spirit in giving value. And guess what? Because I wasn't open to receive, I was in a very bad financial state. So we have to address this. And I love that you brought that up, because that's a small thing, the compliment, but that's actually a mindset that's holding a lot of people back from receiving their big client, from doubling or tripling their income if you're an entrepreneur, from even, launching your side hustle and getting some type of compensation. Sometimes that compensation might be an iTunes review or a message or whatever, but it's all the same energy. And we really have to put ourselves in a state of receiving, because ultimately that's about self-worth.
That's really interesting. So I want to stay on that topic for a minute, because I think that this is something that a lot of people deal with, and it's really hardwired in based on our, how we were brought up, a lot of the influences in our lives that are just subconscious that we don't even think about. So how do you help your clients overcome that mindset that's really closing them off to receiving?
Yeah, and it's such a foundational piece. And really what we're talking about here is this inner work that we tend to avoid. The problem is when we avoid the inner work, we can achieve and still feel empty. Recently I hung out with a Super Bowl champion, and he said that the night that he won the Super Bowl, which is one of the biggest possible feats of achievement that we can create, he felt empty. Once the party and all that died down, he was in his hotel room and he looked in the mirror and he's like, is this it? And to me, that's a direct symptom, and I know because I know him, of not doing that inner work that you just mentioned. So really the first step, and it sounds so cliche and so simple, but a big reason why people lack clarity for where they're going is because we're stuck with something from the past. And it kind of acts as this baggage around us that doesn't allow us to really see the future vision as clearly as we could. And even if we can see the vision, our belief in us making it come true is limited because of something in the past. So as simple as it sounds and as cliche as it sounds, we have to start, and the way that I start, a place of letting go. It comes from a place of letting go and understanding that everything that happened in the past, all the mistakes, all of the issues, all the times you felt not worthy, not capable, not confident, all of that stuff got you to where you are today. And once we can accept that and we can understand it's exactly what's not going to get us to the next level, then we have to make a courageous choice, and that's letting go. And why do I say courageous? Because that is part of our identity. And if we have an identity wrapped in the past, we're going to, again, be limited in the future because our ego, now I'm going a little deep here, but stay with me, because our ego,
I love it. Keep going.
Our ego wants to keep us where we've been because it feels safe and secure, even if where we've been is a painful place. And so this is what we have to understand. And I hope I'm simplifying some of the neuroscience behind this, but this is when we have to really understand that we get in our own way for a reason, because it's much more comfortable to stay in what we've known, even if the known is painful, even if the known is lacking purpose and doesn't have the bank accounts and the relationships that we have. And so letting go always becomes the first step. There's a great quote out there that transformation and radical change and all of that stuff is less about addition, early on at least, and more about subtraction, meaning we have to create some space and then we can finally get to a place of clarity. Just as an example, clients will fly out to here to see me in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the whole first of the day when we do these intensive days is about letting go. And I can actually create experience on the mountain for them because it's very visceral. But once they're up there, once they get to that state, they're like, okay, I haven't felt this level of clarity in 10 years. I haven't felt this level of clarity in 3 years, but whatever it is. And then we begin to create from that place. So this is like a foundational piece that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially young entrepreneurs, they want to skip because it's like, hey, I want to launch the funnel. I want to make the first client. I want to make my first $10,000. And it's like, I love the enthusiasm and that's great. Don't forget to do some of that inner work along the way and let go of some of the past so you can move forward more powerfully into your future.
And you're talking my language now, because
we just went deep.
Yeah, we went deep, and I want to stay deep because I think that too often we kind of skim over this area of the inner work. And you're right, it is the foundation, and it is so important to be able to achieve the results that you want in your life, because if what's inside of you does not reflect the changes that you want to make, then it's not going to happen. And you mentioned the ego, which, some people might have started to raise their eyebrows at, of how that comes into play here. But I totally agree with you, because it is so tied to your identity. Yes. And those words, in my opinion, and I'd love to get your feedback on it, are almost can sometimes be used interchangeably, is your
Yes.
ego and your identity.
Absolutely.
And basically, the way I view it is this construct of yourself that you've created in your mind. And that's based on all of your past experiences, the way you were raised, everything that you experienced in school, sports, social situations, all of it combined into this one powerful image of who you tell yourself that you are based on those things. But what really gets interesting is when we start to do some of this inner work, and you can start to realize that you're not that person that you've identified yourself as based on those. And you can actually change that. It's malleable based on where you want to go. So, as you can tell, this stuff gets me fired up.
No, I love that. And I love what you said about the foundation, because I've written in one of my books, everybody wants to build the amazing home theater in the house, but they don't want to look at the foundation. And when you're building a home or whatever, in this metaphor, if you don't have the right soil, if you don't have the right structure, if you don't have all the components of the foundation, well, when the storm comes, when that big, dark thunderstorm comes, hey, your whole place is going to collapse. And this is just a metaphor for our lives. And so it's, everybody wants to go to the sexy stuff. And I get it, because I've been there and I've done it. And I've also wanted to do that, but it left me with something missing. And what something is missing is exactly what you're saying. And that's the stuff that really lasts. If you're listening, I'm not the guy, Brad's not the guy who's going to just pump you up and give you the results for 6 weeks. If you're listening here, this is like about long-term results that endure, that are going to endure hopefully for the rest of your life. And like that's what I'm committed to teaching. That's what I sense you're committed to teaching, because hey, the 6 weeks thing, it's like, what happens on the next day? It's like, you still have to be with yourself. And on the path of growth, there's all, and when there's another level of letting go. I work with so many entrepreneurs that a lot of the mindsets, the habits, the routines that got them here are exactly what's holding them back. And you know where it gets really, really tricky? When they're in a place of quote unquote success, but they know they're like still not tapping their true potential. And then letting go of that is really hard, Brad, because it's easy to let go of stuff when things aren't working because we have real-time feedback. It's like, this isn't working. Of course I can let go. But hey, it's like things are actually working. That becomes an even more courageous act. So love the path that we're on, man. And this is just so important for people to really understand this.
Yeah. And very sorry to all the first-time listeners who are just hearing, wait, I'm not going to listen to 4 episodes of a personal development podcast, and all of a sudden my life has changed. Because you're right. It is a commitment to growth for the long term. It's a lifelong process, really. It's like working out. You can't go work out for 6 months or 1 month or whatever it may be, get jacked and be like, all right, I'm good. I'm going to be huge for life. It's every day, every week for the rest of your life, if you really want to take your life to the next level. So
absolutely. And when you say that, what comes up is something I say all the time, is that consistency is much more powerful than intensity. And I think for type A's and those who really want to crush it and get out there and all of that stuff, and I love intensity, trust me, but we tend to go so intense that we burn out quickly. And so I like to release that pressure and say, okay, let's focus on, how can we focus on consistency? Meaning we do it every single day and we do it Monday through Friday, whatever that looks like for you, instead of just getting really hard for 2 days and then having no energy left for the rest. And we build skill, we build capability, we build confidence, we build emotional stamina and resilience and intelligence when we do things consistently instead of just doing them once every so often.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll relate to this given your background, but I like to use a lot of fitness analogies because I think it's just a very visual representation oftentimes of what's going on in our life, because you do get that more immediate feedback of saying, okay, I'm skinnier or I'm not, I'm stronger or I'm not. And if you go to the gym, say you're brand new to working out or you haven't worked out in a year, and you go hard in the paint for 2 hours in the gym, your first day back, your ass is gonna be in bed or on a couch for the next 2 days, so sore, 2 days,
yes.
week, I should say, and not going to be able to get back in the gym just because you just destroyed your muscles, and it's going to take them much longer to recover. Whereas if you go consistently and do the small, smart approach of getting your workouts in, ease back into it, but you're going every day. Let's use push-ups, for example. Say you haven't done it in 2 years, and you sit down and you do 15. You might be sore for 4 days, but if you go in and you do 5, and then the next day you do 5, then the next day you do 5, by the end of the week you've hit 35. Whereas if you're only doing 15 twice a week, you're only at 30. And it, over the long haul, those are probably under exaggerated numbers, but over the long haul, it makes a huge difference in terms of the volume of growth that you're able to experience, both in the physical fitness world or in this mindset / success world where the results are not necessarily as tangible.
Yeah, and let's face it, the hardest part of any activity, any ritual, any behavior is that threshold when we get started. So the thing about your example with the push-ups, it's like, and whether you're writing, whether you're doing a podcast, whether you're growing a business, whether you have a morning meditation, the hardest part is that threshold right before you do it where your mind's like, kind of don't want to do it today, kind of want to sleep in today, don't want to go to the gym today, don't want to do this today. And when you're consistent, like you said, you overcome that resistance so much more often. And guess what? The game of life and entrepreneurship and growth is just plain and simple, overcoming that resistance. And so if you embrace consistency and you do it so often, every single day, you just build this confidence that you can make it happen. Like that no matter what, you can make it happen. Even if you're not feeling like it, even if you're not motivated, even if you're a little sick one day or tired or out of it, that you're still willing to do it anyways because it matters to you. And that there's no short-term hack. There's no short-term, instant gratification that can ever hold a candle to that feeling.
So something tells me that your latest book, which is titled The Leap of Your Life, How to Redefine Risk, Quit Waiting for Someday and Live Boldly, probably tackles some of these things that we're talking about.
Just slightly.
So what was the inspiration for the book, and why did you decide to put this out there?
Yeah, the inspiration was having so many conversations. I mean, I'm very passionate about what I do, and I live in this space, and I'm having conversations like we're having right now. I mean, all day, and also being in the trenches with my clients and running live events and stuff like that. And the constant theme is that we live in a world of dreamers. We live in a world of people with big ambition, and so often they're waiting for something. They're waiting to feel ready. They're waiting for another degree. They're waiting for the economy to go up or down. They're waiting for permission from someone. They're waiting for, endless reasons to wait. And the great tragedy is that when we wait, so when we have clarity around a breakthrough, when you and I know we had to do something, maybe when you knew you had to launch the podcast, or somebody out there has clarity around a decision they have to make. In the moment, in that specific emotional state, we have 100% certainty. It's binary. It's not 79% certainty. It's not 10%. It's not 99. It's 100%. There's no doubt. There's no fear. There's nothing. Now, every second after that we wait and don't act on it, we don't make it real. That's when fear. That's when uncertainty. That's when lack of confidence. That's when all of those things start to build. And fear loves time. The more time that you create between your breakthrough and the decision that you know you have to make and actually making it real or doing something to make it real, fear is just going to pile up all the excuses why you shouldn't do it. So the leap of your life was written for somebody out there who knows that there's something bigger for them. And maybe you don't have crystal clear clarity. You just have this feeling that's simmering, in the early mornings or late evenings, or when you get a moment by yourself and you're like, I am not doing what I need to be doing, and I know there's something else. And this book was designed to open that up and shift some of this conversation around risk, around playing it safe, around living somebody else's path, around waking up with regret one day, and really giving ourselves permission to do it now, understanding there's never any loss in going for it. Sometimes you're going to go for it. You might not get what you want. You might get something better. A door may open that you never saw coming. I mean, it's insane. And so that's why I wrote the book.
It's a powerful message, and I'm glad that you're sharing it with the world. And so I'm sure throughout the process of, writing this book, your other ones, really building up this business that now is Resist Average Academy, you've learned quite a bit. Obviously, you've done the research and you have the practical experience in this space. If you could hop in a time machine and go talk to your younger self right before your, maybe perfect timing, when you're on that train in New York City, and you just start to have really that moment where you're wondering, is my life headed the direction I want it to head? Is there one piece of advice that you would give to yourself sitting on the train?
Absolutely. It would be, don't wait. Make a decision now, and then honor that decision by doing something to make it real. And again, that doesn't have to be some crazy thing, but just do it now. We have clarity. You have enough clarity in this moment. And I'm talking to myself here. You're on this train. You know this is not where you want to end up. This is a message and an inflection point to take another path. Do it now. Don't wait one more second.
I love it. So if people want to check out the book, it comes out on April 2nd, I believe. So should be out right around the time that this podcast gets released. Where can people find that and find you online?
Yeah, I love it, Brad. So the book's available on pre-order, or it's out now depending on when this is released. And Amazon just dropped the price, by the way. But you can go into Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any major book retailer, or leapofyourlife.com. And of course, you love podcasts, and that's how we roll at the Resist Average Academy podcast. And you can check that out on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Nice. Yeah, and you've had some pretty awesome guests on there. You saw that you interviewed Lewis Howes, the hilarious JP Sears, Alex Banayan, Jesse Itzler, all these awesome names. So I'm sure that people would get a kick out of listening to your show, because it seems like you bring on some truly inspirational folks to there.
Thank you. It means the world.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tommy. This is a great conversation, and I'm excited to see the value that you continue to add to the world. And I'm glad that we had the chance to connect.
Brad, right back to you. You're living the message, because just putting on this podcast and all the stuff that you're doing required you stepping into your courage and taking your own leap. So keep going, man, and thank you for having me on.